Hey, Scott Austin here from Jade Puma, and in this video, I'm going to document the process that I figured out for bulk creating collections in your Shopify store using the API. So the scenario that I had was I needed to make like 160 something collections for a store that was all rules based, and it's this store here that I'm still working on for Zeiss, and you can see here, here's my collection names, which, this is a B2B site, so this actually means something to the store owner and their customers, but was kind of Greek for me. And the rules for each one of them is, let's just edit one of these collections here. And there's a rule that's based on the product titles having a similar long string also. So the concept of typing that out accurately 166 times was enough for me to say there must be an easier way. And I knew that I could do it in batch or in bulk through the API, but I didn't know how, and I'd never done that before. And I couldn't find any good documentation on that. So I spent an evening figuring that out, and I wanted to document that for any of you that are trying to do the same thing. Hopefully, my progress will get you moving forward. I am by no means an expert in this. This is probably the video that I'm going to make that I know the least about the topic. But what I'm hoping to do in this video is point you in the right directions. So if you want to do bulk upload processes through the API, you'll learn enough from my video to get you started. So that's my goal here. Let's hope I can fulfill that vision. So the way I found to do an API is with Postman. So Postman is and I'm using a Windows PC. I assume Postman is available on other platforms. It's an application, but I figured out to use Postman. So if you go to Postman, just search for Postman, and you'll find them. You can download the product and all that good stuff. And it's a testing tool that devs use when they're building out APIs. So I don't know if it's the perfect tool for bulk uploading collections, but I got it to work and work quite well. So I was really happy with it. So the first thing you do when you download and install Postman, and so here's my Postman installation, is what I figured out is if you go to, and I search for Postman Shopify, and you'll see this Shopify-Postman, the documenter.getpostman.com. If we go view that website, all right, I already had it open there. There's all this documentation about the Shopify API and different ways to do all these different commands from within Postman. And the beautiful thing is, right, so what I want to do is create a collection, custom collections, so that's a post thing. So this here documents for me how the API with Shopify works. But the beautiful thing is, if you click on, let me go all the way to the top here. If you click on this button over here, Run in Postman, it adds all this documentation for you inside of your Postman app. So one click of the button, it's all there. So let me show you Postman again. So over here, I have this Shopify from Postman that I can expand, and all that same documentation. Remember, I was on products, and then post, and then there's all these different ways to post. So what this is templates, right? So you can start looking at these and figuring out which one is closest to what you need for what you're trying to do. So I found one that was, let me see, I think it was this one here. Yeah, this one here, or no, it was that one. So I found this starting point. So I took that starting point and then I added it to my own implementation. So this collection here was Shopify from Postman. I created another collection for Zeiss US, the store that I'm working on, copied it from there, and then I got this bulk create collection for lenses that I had. Now it didn't have this collection name up here. It just said, it was like in text or something, collection name, or in quotes it would say collection name. So you could type in anything you wanted for the collection name. But this gave me the starting point to work from, which was really, really valuable. So then the next thing you do is you go to your environments and you set some global settings. There's only one global setting that I used, and that was the API version. So this is the Shopify current API, and right now, as I record this, the current API version that Shopify is on is 2021-04. Now, if we go back to our Zeiss US, um, oh no, not that Zeiss US, my collection of Zeiss US bulk create, what you'll see, right? So this string here is the string that they're using, that Postman is going to send to the Shopify servers as the API, post to create the collection. And you see here the API key, right? In brackets. So that just means it's a field. So my API key is stored in my global environments, right? Then I created a set of environments for my Shopify instance. In this case, my Zeiss US, and that was API key, API password, and store name. So what I did is I went into my Shopify admin for that store, went to apps, went to manage private apps, and created a private app. I think it's this one right here for that instance, and that's where I got the key and password, and added those in to Postman. So you got to create a private app, and the private app that I created, right, I had to give it the right permissions. So this private app, I gave permissions for products, which also gives permissions for creating of collections. So this comes up here in a second. It's still loading. You'll see here admin API permissions for product listings, which allows collections also, and product. I wasn't sure which one was going to give me what I needed, so I gave this private app both of those permissions. So if we go back to Postman, I set the Zeiss US variables for API key, API password, and store name. So the key and password come from the private app, and the store name is the preface before the .myshopify.com, right? So in this case here, it was, this Zeiss US right here before the myshopify.com. And those parameters, API key, API password, store name, if we go back to our collections and look at our post for the creating the collections in bulk create collections for lenses, right up here you see API password as a field, store name as a field, API version. So now I've defined at the environment level 4 of the parameters that you see up here in the post command. Now the original template that I had started from, and let me actually show that to you again. Shopify from Postman, products, custom collection, post, I think it was this one here. You can see here that it didn't have, let me check a couple of these other ones. Yeah, and these, it didn't have the field at the end. I had to figure out how to do that. Now this one here says, custom collections.json, and the one that I'm working on it says smart collections.json, and I don't remember exactly how I figured that out. Let me see if I can actually see it here. So I don't know how I figured that one out, that it was smart collections, not custom collections. I probably had to read some documentation to figure that out. But here, if we go back to that, I had to add this other variable, which is the collection name. Now, if we look at the parameters of this, I defined a parameter called collection name, right? And I can put that in there anywhere, any place that I want to when we're editing things up, right? Here, if I wanted to, I could create a collection right now by just putting quote collection name, quote whatever I want the collection name to be, like my test collection or whatever, and it would do that. But I wanted to do this in bulk, right, with 160 some collections. So that's why it's a variable instead of a name. And also what I have here under the body is the rule for the collection. So the collection will be, the collection name is going to be a value that I'm going to give it. And then the rule is also going to say that the title of the product in this smart collection must start with that same string. Now that could have been a separate string, right? And if it was, then I would have to add two values under my parameters. But I could use one, and it met my needs, right? But you could have more than, so these two different fields here, you could have two different, have them be different instead of the same. If you wanted, if let's say the rule was any product whose title starts with aluminum would be in this collection, then you could, have a second value called, product name or whatever you want it to be. But you have to define your parameters that you're going to use. So, you're defining that parameter here at the global level, this one at the server environment level or the Shopify instance, and then you see those are orange because they're defined in the environment. And then this red one here is defined within this definition that I'm making, whatever they call this in Postman, which is this complex thing. Like I said, I don't understand it all. So I got it working. I was super happy with that. Now, how do we do this in bulk though, right? So what happens is, what I at first thought was maybe I could make this text string and just repeat it 160 times, right? I could, come up with a little script that wrote that out for me 160 times, and then I inputted it and it did not work, right? So this only ran, this one line. What it's doing is running this one line one time. So the way you don't have it repeat, from what I found, by adding more of these rows inside the body. Instead, and it's really not intuitive at all, if you look down here, there's this little icon that says runner. So what you do is you bring up runner, and I'm going to add this other instance of runner. And then what I did is you click your, whatever we call this Postman definition for the API, right? This post thing. I click and drag that into runner. And, did it bring in both? Maybe it uses both. Let me see. If I click and drag that, I don't know why it's bringing in both of them, but I only want to run one of them, right? So I'm going to do that in runner. And what runner is going to do is it's going to run this based on another file, which I'm going to show you here in a second. And that's where I'm going to list out the 166 different collections that I want to make by doing this API call 166 times. So what you do is you create an external file. So here I have collections, I did this back on 13 May, CSV, right? And this file here, so if you had multiple, remember I was talking about before, you might have more than one parameter. If you had more than one parameter, you'd have more than one column here. But right now, I only have one parameter, collection name. So this collection name is identical to the parameter that I defined inside the definition. And then here are all the different names that I want for the collections, and the rule that's going to be applied about the product title also. So I just do that simple list, right? I'm going to close that out, not save. And then I go back into the runner and I say select file for where the data is going to come from. And then I just select that collections 13 May that I just had open. I open that up, and you'll notice here on iterations right now it says 1. When I open that up, it now says 166. So it's read in that file, found that there was the header row with the collection name, parameter in it, and 166 values below that. So now it is queued up and ready to run that bulk create process. Remember, it's going to run this part here once here, but runner is going to run it 166 times. So that's how you get from creating one collection to creating a mass of collections. And just so you know, what I also did in this is I just defined in the creation of the collection, I also defined that the image would be the same for all of them. But that also could have been another parameter. I could have had a different collection image for each one of these collections and put that into my spreadsheet also, or my CSV. So then, if I was to run this right now, And I've already got these collections in my store, so I'm not going to run it again. When I first started doing this, I would run it and it wasn't working for me. And it took me a while to figure out a solution. And what it was is every single line it would run it, and it was waiting for a check that it had worked properly. And that's here in this test thing. And the test doesn't show up like when I was showing you before the pre-canned ones from Postman. There's no test defined in those. So if I go into one of these, there's no test. So it took me a little bit of work, and like I said, this is one of those things I don't know exactly how what I did works, but it works, right? So if I go back to my instance, I was able to figure out how tests were formatted, and through some trial and error, I figured out it was looking for a 201 code. So once I added this in, I was off to the races and made all 166 collections really quickly. But it took me a while to figure out that I need to define the test, and it took me a while to figure out what the code was that it was. I don't even know what a 201 code stands for. It took me a while to figure out that it was looking for a 201. But once I did that, it worked really well. So let me show you in the Shopify store on this page here, all these collections, 166 of them. Remember I said they all had the same image. They all have the same image here. And so these got created from this process that I just showed you. And once I got it set up and running, it took seconds to create them. And the whole process of figuring out how to do this was probably still quicker than me typing in manually 166 times and verifying that I got it right every single time, because that would put me to sleep. It was probably less time to figure out this whole process than to do it manually. But now what's fabulous is I have this tool that I can do bulk creation of collections for any of my clients now, right? So now in Postman, let's go back to Postman. I've got this bulk create collections for lenses defined, and I can change that. So if I wanted to have unique images, I can change that. If I want to change the rules, I can change that. And then in my environments, all I have to do is create a new environment for a new client store with those, create a private app and put the right API password, store name, and API key in there, and then I can just reuse this, like I said, whatever they call this in Postman, this little creation that I made. Now I can easily bulk create collections for any one of my clients using this Postman and Shopify API structure, because it's really repeatable and really easily, right? Because these parameters, all I have to do is change the environment. So I've added a new environment here for a new server. All I have to do is say, now let's use that environment, and this command would run perfectly to that other Shopify instance. So I'm really impressed with how well this works and how I can use this now across all my stores. And I'm sure what's going to happen in a year's time, I'm going to have my own set of collections for tasks that I want to do that I can just use and reuse across my different clients as needed by just changing out the environment. So I'm really happy to have figured this out. Hopefully this video gives you enough knowledge to start implementing a structure like this for you if you want it for your store or for your agency. Like I said, it doesn't have all the answers. I definitely don't know everything about this, but I'm just hoping it gives you enough to see the potential and go off and start implementing it on your side. Thanks for watching.